Hey guys, welcome back to the Lovin Dubai show. Swim, bike, run. It sounds easy, but that it is not. Today's guest is Sam Laidlow, the youngest ever world Ironman champion. He is in fact regarded as one of the best triathletes in the world, so we're so excited to dig deep into that. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. You've just come off the back of Kona, Hawaii. You are one of the world's best triathletes. How did you get into the sport?
I've been in it forever. Yeah, I did my first triathlon when I was 4 years old.
What?
Yeah, just like a mini triathlon. My dad was into it, and my parents moved to France to set up a triathlon training camp business. So yeah, I've been doing it since I can remember, really.
Okay, so in the blood.
In the blood, yeah.
Currently, let's say pre-Kona, what was your? Because I know you've had a small injury, but what was your training schedule like to get ready for a big race?
So yeah, depending on where we race, we're doing more and more heat prep. So for races like here in Dubai, it can obviously get very hot. I was in Hawaii; it's also pretty hot there. So yeah, I'd say we train between 20 to 35 hours a week. We normally do 2 to 3 sessions a day, and then sometimes on top of that, we'll do some gym work or some specific heat prep, which means basically getting in a hot room, putting a load of clothes on and suffering for an hour or so, which isn't super enjoyable. But,
like a sauna?
Yeah, well, kind of. You can't, if you can fit your bike in a sauna, then you can use a sauna. Otherwise, yeah, you just shut yourself in a room, stick the heating on, put a few clothes on, and yeah, that's generally what we're doing. So yeah, I think more and more athletes are doing that because there's been more research to show that is beneficial. Yeah.
Yeah, do you find if you've trained in a hot country like Dubai and then you go and do a run in the UK, for example, you're much more powerful?
Yeah, you do really notice it. Yeah, just everything's much harder in the heat. It's kind of similar to altitude as well. Like a lot of athletes go up to altitude to train, but then they get the benefits when they come down. And yeah, more and more so people are realizing that actually heat has a similar effect.
Speaking of preparation, how strict have you been or are you on your diet? Is there certain foods you avoid? Are you relaxed?
Yeah, I feel our sport is kind of hard enough as it is, or like the lifestyle is hard enough as it is. So if you're also too strict on yourself about that, then you kind of lose balance and lose the enjoyment factor. And as soon as you lose balance, you can't really keep consistency over a long term. And consistency is what kind of brings you victories, I guess. And so yeah, there's been periods in my career where I've been a bit too strict. Yeah, I had a whole year where I was just like overly focused on my weight, and yeah, that wasn't healthy. I was both mentally and physically I wasn't performing that year. So yeah, now I've just learned to I tried to eat healthy, of course, but I mean last night I had a pizza, so yeah, I guess not.
That year when you really focused on getting super healthy, were you preparing for something particular that you just wanted to smash?
Not particularly. It was more that my weakness has always been running, and I was just adamant that if I was lighter, I'd be a better runner. But that wasn't the truth. You also have to be strong and healthy. And actually, like more and more so, I realized that health is like the main thing that you need to be very good at. And I think the best athletes in the world, they are very, very healthy because you need to cope with so much training and not getting ill, not getting injured. And yeah, I mean, my recent injury is probably a good example of that. I came off of Hawaii, like a big travel, and then when you're traveling, it's hard to eat well, hard to sleep well, and I just did my normal training, but I wasn't as healthy as usual, and yeah, managed to rip my hamstring.
So sorry to hear about that injury, which means you're not going to be racing this weekend?
Yeah, unfortunately I won't, but instead I'm here to promote it.
And we are lucky to have you. Like I said, one of the world's best triathletes. So we need to get into some advice. You mentioned that you felt like your weakness is running. For anyone watching who's into triathlon, like how would you suggest they balance out their trainings if they have a weakness in a certain sport?
Yeah, well, I think triathlon always seems like a big word to people. They're like, oh, that's like super long, super hard to do for like endurance freaks. But there's all sorts of distances, and often like people do maybe have a bike or have ridden a bike and they have run before, and it's often people's weakness is often the swim actually for people who come to triathlon. So yeah, maybe, I don't know, find a swim coach, someone that makes you kind of feel more comfortable in the water to start off with, and then yeah, I guess just kind of like registering for a small event, getting started like that. But yeah, I think a lot of people, especially people who have kind of a 9-to-5 job or something, when they do train, they probably train too hard because they want to compensate for that kind of lack of time that they've had to train. So they'll just go and do 30 minutes of like HIIT intervals. But actually, if you do want to get better, one of the best ways to do it is to start off like really easy and mostly do what we call aerobic training. So yeah, I mean, if you were to use a kind of like rated perceived exertion, I think it's more beneficial to do maybe 30 minutes at kind of like 3 to 4 out of 10 than it is to go and do 30 minutes at 9 out of 10. You'd get more benefit from that, and you'd probably enjoy it more and more likely to go back to sessions and do it more regularly.
Right. Rich back there, I hope you're taking notes. Let's move from small race suggestions to big races. Can you give people an idea of what type of races you've competed in, which ones you've won, and for you, your most memorable race to date?
Yeah, so I've always been, like, my goal and dream has always been to be the best long distance triathlete. So we kind of have two, traditionally before the Team 100 came along, there was short course athletes which kind of raced on at the Olympics and Olympic distance, which is about a 2-hour event. And then I did what we call Ironman, so that's more an 8-hour event. And then the Team 100 has come along, and now we have a race which is kind of slap bang in the middle of it, and it brings the best athletes from both circuits. And so my biggest achievement is being Ironman world champion, which happened last year in Nice in France, and then this year I won London T100 and came second in the last series in Ibiza. So yeah, they would be my 3 best results.
It's so amazing, and congratulations for that. You know, some of the stepping stones that people find difficult to even consider these types of races, it's not the physical ability. I feel like it's the mental. So how do you prepare yourself mentally for these long races? Because you're going in to win it, right?
Yeah, it's a good question. This year, actually, when I went to Hawaii, was the first year that I employed someone kind of specifically to help me with that. So he came to Hawaii with me, and he's like my effectively mental coach, you know. So yeah, it's something that I'm still learning, but equally, I don't feel you need to necessarily employ someone. I just think that I've found anyway that when you put yourself in uncomfortable situations, whether it be in sport or anything in life, that's when you tend to grow the most. You know, you likely fail or likely have a bad time, but you learn a lot from them moments. So yeah, and just over time, putting myself in these uncomfortable situations, I feel like I've kind of gained some sort of resilience.
So what happened during the Kona race?
Given that horrendous photo that you put on the back of it, that's how I finished.
Massa. Casey.
So I basically, everything was going to plan until it wasn't. I was leading the race by quite some margin, but I messed up my hydration strategy. I took on too many electrolytes at one point, and it kind of just created an imbalance in my stomach. And I thought I was going to win it, and then suddenly I just started seeing stars. And yeah, the last 25 kilometers of the marathon were just kind of me, hobbling around really. And I finished in a really bad way, as you can see there. That's actually my mum behind looking at. It looks like she's looking at my bum, but she's not. And so unfortunately, Ironman is and long distance triathlon in general is such a long event that if you're kind of slightly off of it, it's very, like, if you come into that day at 99% and not 100%, it's very difficult to win these races. Yeah.
So sorry we've used that photo. It's not. We should
fine.
have a victorious shot. But you mentioned hydration strategy and that you messed it up. So, like, for those of us who are a bit unfamiliar, how do you plan a hydration strategy? What does it look like? And then where did you go wrong on race day with that?
Yeah, so hydration is very individual, and it also changes depending on how much time you've spent in certain conditions. So maybe someone who's moved to Dubai, for instance, initially they get here, and so often what tends to happen is when people get used to exercising in the heat, they start sweating more because it's your body's natural way of kind of cooling itself down. And then you get people that are what we call salty sweaters and not so salty sweaters. So some people lose a lot of sweat and salt. Some people just lose a lot of sweat. So trying to measure that out, a very easy way is to, for instance, just weigh yourself before and after, let's say a 2-hour bike ride or 1-hour run session, and then you can calculate how much you've lost. You'd obviously have to compensate for how much you've drunk also. So if you've drunk 2 liters during the session, then you obviously add that. And that's a good start. And then just making sure you kind of keep topped up. Make sure you don't probably lose more than like 3 to 4 liters over your whole session. Then it starts getting obviously detrimental to your recovery.
And is there a way to monitor that mid-race?
There are systems that are coming into place, but I wouldn't say they're super precise right now. We do wear some monitors that kind of track your sweat rate and stuff, but you wouldn't check it in the race. I mean, you kind of, if you're thirsty, then you probably just need to drink.
Right.
That's probably the best indicator.
I feel like we're a city that would have like all of the gear, you know. So if it's there, we would have it to improve our Ironmanning. But we mentioned. We want to talk about burnout in endurance sports. So earlier on, you mentioned you had a pretty rough year where you kind of focused on so much on your diet, and it actually didn't work out for you. Have you ever kind of experienced a feeling of burnout in relation to endurance sports?
Yeah, massively. So when I was that year when I kind of starved myself, didn't help probably because I didn't have any sugar going to my brain. But I went through a phase when I was 18, let's say. Where I generally questioned if I kind of had a future in this sport. Luckily, I had some supportive people around me that kind of kept me on the right track. But that was mostly due to when you're a kid, you kind of naturally get put into these boxes or like, okay, you need to study this, and I was doing triathlon at the same time, and as a youngster, triathlon you had to do short course. So go towards the Olympic event, and for me that just wasn't what I wanted to do really, and so I was really one of the first kind of juniors to say, okay, I'm just going to go straight to long course, and so I did my first long distance event when I was 18 years old, but at that time I still wasn't good enough, and everyone was questioning what I was doing, so I just felt like I just made a load of bad decisions, and so I was just training probably too much, not eating enough, and I just lost the enjoyment. I think I was kind of almost overly disciplined. And as I said before, as soon as you lose that balance, it's very, very difficult to perform. And I don't just think that's in sport, I think it's in anything. If you're too addicted to work, for instance, and don't enjoy anything around of it, you'll probably burn out as well.
You have been in the industry since you were 4. You've seen a lot of changes, and I just wonder, now we all have access to the internet, we all have access to all of the gear. We can be at our top level, nutrition-wise, physically and mentally. So what, in your opinion, makes someone number one? What gives you an edge over your competitors, do you think?
I would say, I've always said that my greatest kind of ability is to actually bring great people together and motivate them, because yes, it's an individual sport, but when you get to a high level of anything, you need a good team around you. And because, for instance, I'm a good athlete, but I'm not the best coach, I'm not the best nutritionist, I'm not the best aerodynamicist, the list could go on, not the best doctor, etc., physio. And I find it really important to kind of bring people together. I enjoy bringing people together and motivating them towards a common goal more than anything,
Interesting. And give us a better idea of what brings you to Dubai.
What brings me to Dubai is the T100, the grand final. It's been a pleasure to race this series all year long. Unfortunately, I can't compete in the grand final, but I still want to be here to not only promote the event, but mostly to see my friends race, friends and competitors, and just watch a great event. I think, this is the first year, obviously, where we have a real series with a grand final like this, so it'll be exciting for the sport,
And have you visited Dubai before?
No, it's my first time,
Okay. We have a big triathlon scene in Dubai, and I just wonder, have you got a sense of that, or what were your first impressions of the scene here since you've arrived?
Yeah, so I was actually really, if I'm going to be honest, I wasn't looking forward to coming to Dubai in terms of the city, not for the race. It wasn't something that appealed to me, to be honest. But actually, when I first got here, I was actually surprised, by just the sporting community in general. I was staying in District 1 for a bit, and obviously it was kind of prime area to train over there. And I don't think I went for a run or cycle where I didn't kind of get encouraged by some fans or anything. So it was nice. And then just the whole kind of vibe around the coffee shops and stuff like that is nice here. You see people outdoors really early, and that's great to see.
Love that. Sam Laidlow, thank you so much for your time this morning. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
And that brings us to the end of the Lovin Dubai show. We're back here with you tomorrow morning, same time, same place. Bye-bye.